Okay, hello everybody, it's James here and it's Ask Dutch Anything episode 63. As Dutch eats a banana, I'm going to be blathering on a little bit. So, thank you very much everybody for joining us, and the premise of this show, if you haven't really tuned in for it, is Ask Dutch Anything. What does that mean? You email questions for dutch@gmail.com, send in your question there, and the best questions make it into the format for every single episode. I realise I've just been talking, Dutch, you didn't even have your earphones on. That's fine, I'm doing the intro, so don't worry about it. Anyway, what are you opening there?
Are we on now?
Oh, yeah, I was doing the intro for it. Don't worry. What are you trying to open? Mustache wax?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. A fine-looking mustache it is as well. As I say, we've got to speed.
Grabbing me a banana.
Absolutely. Get that potassium level up, for goodness sake. Hate bananas. Mm-hmm. My most hated food
Do you
in the
really?
world. Hate them. Hate them.
Why?
Oh,
Why?
I can't stand the smell, can't stand the texture. Doesn't matter. It's a phobia almost for bananas for me. Not like Undertaker and cucumbers, but there you go. Right then. As once again I said, fan questions. Here's the first one. Larry in Alabama says, why didn't The Rock use Dutch in his Christmas movie Red 1? He has the beard. Maybe it's because Dutch wouldn't trim the mustache. Have you seen Red 1?
No, I have not.
It was on Amazon Prime. It's the most watched film of all time, apparently, on Prime.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. What is it about?
Put it this
way. I've heard about it, but I don't know what it's about.
Like, The Rock is the security guard for Father Christmas, Santa Claus, played by J.K. Simmons. Anyway, my wife, I made her watch the trailer. She wanted to see a Christmas film, and I said, do you fancy watching that? And she watched the trailer and went, that looks stupid. And she will watch any old crap.
She did say that.
Oh, yeah. She went, we're absolutely not watching it. So there you go. Next
and that's a good question. Why wasn't I included in that?
Yeah, you should be. For goodness sake.
Yeah.
You haven't got the arms of J.K. Simmons. He works out like a fiend, that guy. He's good in Whiplash, among other things, and Portal 2.
Okay, next question.
Johnny, Middlesbrough, England. Dear Dutch and James, how would the Dutchman book John Cena's last year in wrestling? Also, as Rock and Cena are slated for the first Raw on Netflix and WWE is hyping Cena's last appearance in Toronto at the Elimination Chamber in the Skydome, what are the chances we see the rubber match between Rock and Cena at the event? If so, who should win?
Okay, Rock and Cena at when does he want to see this match?
Well, I guess Elimination Chamber. When is Elimination Chamber?
I don't know when it is.
I'll find that out. But how would you book John Cena's last year in WWE? It's basically a retirement tour.
Yeah, just book him in matches and have somebody just badmouth him, and it's just a match. You're not going to get a lot of steam on it. But I think if his last match is when? WrestleMania next year?
Yes, he said he was going to finish it up WrestleMania next year. Yeah, so from WrestleMania to WrestleMania.
Well, you got all that time to start building your program and let his last match be at WrestleMania against whoever they deem necessary that needs the rub. I think Gunther would be a good one. I think John needs to do the honors. I don't think he would have a problem doing that. Hell, he did the honors for, what's his name, the kid? Austin Theory.
Yep.
Did the honors for him. So I don't, and John's good about that. I don't think, everybody knows how old John is, and he tries to probably hide his age a little bit. I don't blame him, but I think they would have a good little run for WrestleMania next year if they start building it and take a year to build it, and then go to it and have the match and then wrap it up clean and we're gone. And then John, he has his moment in the sun, and he thanks everybody for a spectacular career and their support, and he hopes everybody stays healthy, and he'll see them later.
Would you have him on the run-up to next WrestleMania when he's doing all these matches, his last... They're going to do it like how they should have done Sting's. This is his last appearance in Springfield, Massachusetts. This is the last appearance in Tampa, Florida kind of thing. Build up every single live event or Raw or whatever it is that's going to be his last appearance there. Would you have him win most of the matches en route to losing at next year's WrestleMania, or would you just have him put everybody over on the way?
No, I wouldn't have him put everybody over. No, I think that lessens his impact on the sport, on the industry, and himself. Because, he's got a lot of fans out there, and they don't want to see him go. But if he does go have him go in a way that means something and helps advance another talent. I think that's the way he would like to wrap it up anyway.
My suggestion would be Bron Breakker. I think he'd be the good person
That'd be a
to
good
beat,
one,
John.
And I think he's got a lot of choices. That you could have Von Breakker, and you could have any number of talents that you want to spring them loose, give them a good push, and I don't think he'd have a problem with that. I really don't.
He's 47 at the moment. Just to go back on the other part of the question, do you think Rock and Cena will wrestle at Elimination Chamber? That's March the 1st. I highly doubt they've got...
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think Rock is WrestleMania or SummerSlam or something that I doubt he's going to do a B show, and I doubt he's going to do it this soon anyway. Right, next question. Excuse me. Michael asks, I was wondering if Dutch ever crossed paths with Chris Colt.
I did, but very, very sparingly. I didn't have a lot of interaction with him. And I think Chris, when I met him, I think he was having some difficulties. And I never really got to know him well. I heard a lot of stories about him. But as far as I know, I never had any problems with him. I always liked him. He was always cordial to me. So I'm not an expert on Chris Colt at all.
No, I know that he was rather an oddball, I guess. There was a Dark Side of the Ring dedicated to him that I guess not many people watch because very few people remember Chris Colt. But yeah, one of the more interesting characters of the Territory days, I guess.
Yeah, he was. I heard a lot of stories about him, but I didn't spend that much time around him. So
no, that's fine.
I wouldn't be the one to ask about him.
Darren from Newcastle asks, "What is the best or funniest, the best funny/silly match that you have ever seen?"
Well, I was probably in them, because you're talking about silly matches. You could see some silly matches in Memphis. You're really good, and having Bill Dundee out there, he's one of the kings of the stupid matches. Lawler too. They could have stupid matches. But I'm trying to think now, but probably Jimmy Valiant. Not only stupid matches, but highly entertaining because of the way he would. Jimmy, when he was smart, they would play his music and he would dance to the ring. And he'd go to the ring and people were all up dancing with him. And the match would go like 2 minutes. And then he'd spend the rest of the time, they start his music again, then he'd dance back to the dressing room. He would dance back the same way he came. So by the time he left that dressing room door till he got back, only 10 minutes had elapsed, but it's 10 minutes of good entertainment. People enjoyed it and people could laugh. I mean, you're not going to see blood and all this stuff that you would see very good entertainment. Kids loved him. So Jimmy was a heel for quite a number of years. He was a heel in New York back when the old Vince McMahon Sr. had it, made a ton of money. But when he came to Memphis, he came in as a heel and the people liked him so much. He was only like, I guess, a heel 6 months. Then they turned him babyface and he just drew big money. Yeah. Very likable guy, by the way.
He always had a really good body in the early days. He was a bit of a bodybuilder as well. I know
Jimmy's tall too.
Yeah, well, I think that sort of helps like his silly matches then, because maybe it's like a Robert Parker kind of thing, just lanky and just limbs everywhere, and it always just adds to the comedy.
Oh, when you just see him come out, and the music picks you up anyway. Do 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 do, New York City, the boy from New York City. It's a great song. I wonder who wrote that song. Some guy in Memphis wrote that song for him. I can't remember. Can you find that out?
I'm Googling it. 1964. It was by the soul group The Adlibs. It was produced by Lieber and Stoller.
Well, the boy from New York City, yeah, it fit him perfect too. He drew a lot of money.
Next question. I'm going to have to leave my glass on. Raz Irving, Texas. Sorry, he's Raz from Irving, Texas. Anyway, my question is... okay, my question is, as an in-ring competitor, which was the biggest stadium you performed in, Dutch? I'm thinking Texas Stadium or Superdome. Let me know, thanks. So the biggest venue you ever wrestled or performed in?
Superdome. We were there. That Superdome is huge. I think we had a big show when I was working for Bill Watts, and we had a big show at the Superdome. And, they brought in Muhammad Ali one time. I met him. And I forgot the match he was in. I think he's with Jake the Snake. Mm-hmm. And I think the finish was, Muhammad clipped him one time, knocked him out, down, 1, 2, 3. And he was working with a snowman. And Muhammad Ali was the special referee. And he had a few more times there. You could put 20,000 people. You could put a ring right in the middle of the Superdome and put 20,000 people around that ring, and it would still look empty. Because they probably had 15 to 20,000 at the show that I was on. But it looked like a ghost town out there because you had all those seats up top. They're just all empty. But I enjoyed being able to work in the Superdome. First time I'd ever been in it. I think I've been in it twice. But
WrestleMania 30 was in the Superdome as well, wasn't it?
WrestleMania when?
30. So, yeah, 2014. Yeah. Or the Silverdome, according to Hulk Hogan.
Boy, he stepped into that one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Superdome is a very nice building. Remember when they had the hurricane, it really wrecked that Superdome. They thought they couldn't fix it, but they did. So it's up and running now. So
I'm thinking WrestleManias as well, because you're at MetLife as well. That was in New Jersey.
MetLife Stadium, yep.
Yep.
I was there, and where was the next one at?
Yeah, the one after that was the Silverdome.
They all run together.
Okay,
I remember the MetLife Stadium.
Yeah, MetLife was when you just become Zeb Colter, and then the one after that was the WrestleMania 30.
That's where I met Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Right there. Yeah, I remember that one now.
Tripping over presidents you were over your career. Very briefly, I may have asked you this before, but is there a difference between audience reaction or how the sound reverberates in an open air stadium compared to a closed roof arena?
I think there is a little bit of a difference, but they have those sound systems now that whether it's closed or not, I don't think it makes that much difference in the sound. But I enjoyed working at MetLife because I went out there and talked about the dirty, filthy streets of New York and all the immigrants, and they were taking over and nobody was speaking English. And it almost sounds like you could do that same interview today and be truthful, and it would fit. And little did I know that Donald Trump was listening to me. So when he came after the match, he came back through, and I guess he was leaving or going somewhere. And he came over and shook my hand. And I told the story before. He said, tremendous. He says everything twice. Tremendous. So, yeah. I met Jimmy Carter. Did I say I met Jimmy Carter?
Yeah. So you met Jimmy Carter. You met Donald Trump. I
met two.
You dropped the leg on...
yeah, Biden.
George Walker Bush.
Yeah. I did that. So, I met quite a few people in this business that I never would. Okay, say take me when I was a kid, back when I was in the 9th grade, I never thought I'd go around the world. I never thought I would see all these countries and meet all these people. And there's probably a lot of people that, I could have met, but I didn't. But, it's been quite a trip, quite a journey, and I've enjoyed it.
Next question. Travis writes in and says, "Hi, Dutch and James. I love the podcast. I look forward to you every Tuesday and Friday. Thank you. My question is about merch tables from the Territory days. I went to Smoky Mountain Wrestling every month in Johnson City, Tennessee as a teenager and was fascinated with the assortment of items the Rock and Roll Express would attempt to sell. There are, of course, 8x10 photos and a few t-shirts, but also mixed in were various pieces that were almost laughable as I look back. Pieces of plywood, painted and signed by Ricky and Robert, vintage wall clocks signed by the pair, and other outlandish items. Then I didn't think much of it, but now I think back and chuckle at the unique assortment on that table from the Rock and Roll to make a book on. My question for Dutch is this. Was it always this way? What outlandish items did Dutch sell or witness being sold? Is my experience with the Rock and Roll an extreme, or would other talents peddle the unusual? Thank you."
Now, I think the Rock and Roll's extreme. Also, the extreme was Handsome Jimmy. We just talked about Handsome Jimmy. He would sell anything. Somebody would come up to the table. Hey, Daddy, you want a picture of Handsome Jimmy or whatever? And he'd start at $5, say. Well, I know I don't really have the money. Okay, that's fine. For you, $4. And he would start coming down on the price while they were standing right there. But yeah, the Rock and Roll and Handsome Jimmy were the kings of the gimmick table. And Danny Davis, remember the Nightmares, Danny Davis? They would go out, and that's how they made their money. Basically, they didn't make it wrestling so much as they sold those gimmicks, and they sold it a lot too. There's another part of that question. Did it say
just like unusual stuff that people were selling? I also heard that the Rock and Roll would like tear strips off a t-shirt, write R&R on them, and just say, "Look, official Rock and Roll Express headbands." Like just any old shit they put the name to and sell it.
Well, see, when I was out there, they was probably on the other end of the table, so I didn't pay a lot of attention to them. But I'm sure anything that would have money exchange hands, they'd be willing to part with. And they just put their name on it and take a picture, and they'd be gone. And they did a Smoky Mountain. They did a lot of business. We was in one town in Kentucky, had a high school gym. It was just a little event there, and I bet they sold $3,000 or $4,000 worth of merchandise in that little town. So that's not a bad payday. And that's not him, and that doesn't include them wrestling. They get paid. They get paid extra for that. But the gimmicks, that's where a lot of guys made their money.
Hanging from the rafters.
It was a good house. They weren't hanging from the rafters, but they had a lot of people.
I'm sure if Ricky was saying it, it'd be like hanging from the rafters.
Oh yeah, Ricky. He would say anything. Great guy, But Robert was probably more of the merchandiser than Ricky was. And they would work that table. But you got to think there's two of them, so they got to split everything. With Handsome, he took it all because he was just selling himself. But they did good. And, and the people, if they didn't want to buy it, they wouldn't come up to the table. And I think when people went back, they were happy with it. They were satisfied with it, or they wouldn't buy it.
Any other weird items you've seen sold, or just opportunistic kind of stuff? I mean, what have you sold that's weird over the years at the gimmick tables?
I don't really. I just sold pictures and maybe T-shirts. Basically, is what I sold, and now I sell the books. I do that, but out of the way stuff, nah, I don't do that.
Any examples you can give us? Other examples
of selling your crazy stuff?
Yeah.
I'm trying. I'm trying to think. Danny Davis, he would sell out of the way stuff, I think. But I have heard some guys selling their trunks, selling their socks. I mean, and the people were asking for it, so it's not like they were pushing it on them. They didn't put it out on the table, but they would, what do you got? What do you got? I think Robert said it one time, well, what about my socks? How much you want for them? They said, $5. Okay. And he went and got him a pair of socks and brought it back out.
I love the entrepreneurial nature of it all. Next one, Alfred, Huntsville, Alabama. Hello, Dutch and James. During your territory days, did the baby faces ever share any of their merchandise money with the heels they worked with, or did a promoter ever give heels a little more since they couldn't sell merch?
I didn't know of any good guys giving any of their merchandise money to the heels. Heels were just on their own, tell you the truth. And if you want Robert Gibson to give you some money, that's like if you were dying in the desert of thirst. Well, Robert had a full canteen, walk right by you. He ain't split nothing. And Ricky may have had a little bit of a heart. He may have done it, but no, I never heard of anybody, any of the good guys, sharing their gimmick table revenue with any of the heels. Even though the heels will go out there and give them a hell of a match, that's where it ended. That's what I guess they would say. Well, that's what he got paid to do, and what I got paid to do, I did my job. Now I'm gonna go sell my gimmicks. So yeah, that was a little bit selfish on the babyface's part, but that's the way it worked.
Did you ever negotiate a pay rise after you were asked to turn heel?
Well, I have, and I was turned down. And I said, okay, if you're going to turn me down on that, I think I'm going to leave. I'm going to finish. And I probably finished up. I forgot where it was. I think I was in Continental, and I think I finished up in about 3 weeks later.
Anthony from Dublin, Ireland says, hi, Dutch. Firstly, I want to wish you well and happy Christmas to you and your family. I wanted to know what your opinion was of Gino Hernandez. I heard Bruce Pritchard say he would have been the $1 million man if he went to the WWF. Do you believe, and a separate question, do you believe he was murdered? So, first off, we're talking your opinion of Gino Hernandez.
Well, he had everything that it took to be a superstar. He had the look, good-looking guy, good body, good talker. And yeah, I think he would have been, if Vince had gotten him, yeah, I don't know if he'd have been the $1 million guy, but he would have made a lot of money. He would, because he was just the type that Vince liked and that the girls would like, the kids would like. And he was a great heel. Now, when I met Gino, he was kind of in bad shape. Gino got to doing drugs really, really bad. And do I believe he was murdered? I don't know. I've heard different stories, but he was dealing with a different crowd back in those days. And Gino, you could be talking to him and he was like this. He'd be looking here. Excuse me. I got a cold. But he would be looking around like somebody's coming through the door. And then when you're talking to him, you're looking like, what the hell? What the hell are you looking at? But he got very fidgety. And I think about, since that time I was with him, I think he died about 6 months later. And how did he die? Did he die of a drug overdose?
Yeah, but I think there were suggestions that, he was given a hot shot forcibly and he was found, one of those things where it's made to set up like it was an overdose.
I can't speak of that. So, but he was running with a different crowd and hated it happened because he would have been a big star.
I'm not sure about $1 million man, though, because I always thought that he was more in like the Ric Flair mold.
Maybe.
That kind of thing.
But no, I think he would have been a much bigger star than he ever was in Texas.
Yeah. Next question. We've only got 2 left. As I say, we're going to condense these down slightly, I think, because just of the stress of turning them over, if anything. George, hello, James and Dutch. I know you have talked about some of the best enhancement guys in the past. I've been watching some videos of Bob Cook. He seems to have a great right hand. Did you ever work with Bob, or were you ever in the same promotion at the same time with Bob?
Oh, I was. Bob was a very good talent in the ring. Not really a big talker, but great in the ring, because you could put him out there against anybody, because it takes a rare individual that doesn't work full time. And I don't know what else he was doing. I think he had a job and he just showed up on TV days. But when he showed up and that you could put him in there against anybody, and he'd make them all look good and make it look competitive. I don't know how Bob would be on interviews, and he may not have wanted to work full time, but I'm sure if he did, he could have gotten a job in a lot of different places. Pretty big guy too, so and easy to get along with.
I'm just looking here. He was mostly associated with WCW, and you're right saying that I think it's pretty much just TV tapings and that kind of thing. I know Bob's fairly active occasionally on YouTube, so you might be able to clue us in a bit. Later on in the mid-90s, he would do some enhancement work for the WWF as well. A lot of people have said that he's like one of those unsung heroes. I believe Sean Waltman, when he had a tryout with, I don't know if it's WWF or WCW, it might have been WCW, and he specifically asked for Bob Cook to work with. So, I mean, that speaks highly of someone that most people wouldn't know the name of who to ask for, but if you're in the know, then Bob was your man.
Well, he was a rarity, that he wasn't like a top talent, but he could have been, I think, because when guys, and you said who asked for him?
Waltman, X-Pac.
Well, because he knows that that he could have a hell of a match with Bob, and Bob would make him look good. So, and that speaks of how good he was right there. Bob Cook, very, very, very talented in the ring.
And our final question for this episode, Jimmy from Oklahoma says, hello, Dutch and James. In the mid-90s, the WWF had a backstage interviewer / merch hype man named Todd Pettengill. He was known for making cheesy jokes on air, and in my opinion comes off as a fun and likeable guy. However, he seems to be hated by most fans, and as far as the boys go, I never heard his name come up in shoot interviews. Does Dutch have any stories about Mr. Pettengill? Thanks.
Well, when I was there, I think he was on when did he leave WWF?
Okay, so with Todd, he got in there in 93. He left the WWF in 97, late night, autumn of 97. So he was sort of, during your initial run as Uncle Zeb, he was there the entire time. But he only turned up live, I think, to pay-per-views. I don't really think he did the Raws or the Superstars or anything like that. He was a New York DJ and a very successful one at the time. So he was splitting jobs.
Well, I never did an interview with him, I don't think. I'm not sure. But, yeah, he's not the type who would go out and party with the guys, so they wouldn't talk about him and, go party with him or anything. Vince seemed to like him, and he did, what'd you say, he showed up later doing what?
He only did the pay-per-views, and then he did studio stuff in Connecticut as well, so he'd do...
Yeah, that's why I didn't run... Yeah, that's why I didn't run across him. Because if he was in the studio most of the time and not on the road, I wouldn't have seen him. But he was very good. And I think I saw an interview with him with somebody, a network guy, but I don't know if that was him or not.
Yeah,
Todd Pettengill, man, that's reaching way, way back.
You see, that's my era, though. I mean, here's the thing with Todd, is he was an excellent presenter. Like, he never flubbed his lines. He was really professional. He didn't know anything about wrestling, really. He only know, the bare bones of it, but he was a really good TV presenter. The only problem with Todd is that, one, he was making an awful lot of money. With the W, he's probably making $250,000 a year for just, living in Connecticut, doing these Saturday morning shows and flying out for a pay-per-view once every 2 or 3 months, or every month after In Your House comes out. But he was probably making even more money in New York doing this like morning radio show where he was still like a young kid and burning the candle at both ends, trying to do both. So he ends up, he left the WWF. The WWF didn't cancel on him or, end his contract. They wanted to keep him. The problem with Todd is that he was too plain to the kids. And I think that's a image problem when the WWF in late 97 wants to get more gritty and more real. So it's sort of, when they split off from each other, it's sort of the best for both parties. But I thought he was very talented. Okay,
Todd Pettengill today, is he still with us?
He's still alive. He's still doing radio. I mean, nowhere near as... I don't know. He does do radio, but it might just be internet radio or smaller radio than, in the 90s.
Well, he wasn't a partier. He didn't go out and party with the guys. He didn't do drugs. He didn't mess around with his old lady or whatever. So far as I know, he's a pretty good guy.
Yeah, what was he doing in the wrestling business?
And how did he get there? Did Vince find him?
I think so. Yeah, he was like in his early 20s or something when he was an interviewer. He had a mullet at one point,
and he was very good.
Yeah. On that basis, we're going to shut down the show. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. That was Ask Dutch Anything, episode 63. If you want your questions answered on a future episode, you email questionsfordutch@gmail.com. And all there is left to say is please join us on Friday for our interview. Cross fingers, hopefully it all works out. You never quite know when there's 3 people instead of 2. But hopefully we'll have Kurt Angle on for Friday. And all there is left to say is see you then. We the people.
We the people. See you then.